Hi, everyone. Welcome to the last lesson or the last portion of the course. Attached to this will be an assignment, and this will be the final assignment that you will have for the course. Okay. So last week, we started talking about privilege, and I had you do an activity that basically does not equate what we could do in a classroom, but it maybe gives you an idea, um, an understanding of privilege. So we'll talk about social inequalities, minorities, and social movements. Okay, so privilege, a special right, advantage, or immunity granted or available only to a particular person or group of people. They are people that don't have as many privileges as others, as you noticed with the video that you watched, that some people ended up closer to the line, further ahead, and some people were way at the back. Okay. And so we talk about marginalization, which is the process where someone is pushed to the edge of a group and accorded lesser importance. This is predominantly a social phenomenon by which a minority or a subgroup is excluded and their needs or desires ignored. Basically, it is social exclusion. So I am adding a video that talks a little bit about marginalization, but basically, um, people are marginalized for certain things. So, for example, race. We know that some groups have more privilege or access to more rights than others. We know that age has something to do with it. So the elderly don't seem to have as many rights as the general population. And if you've been keeping up with this whole COVID pandemic and what's doing to long-term care facilities, you can start to see how neglected these places are. Sex and gender, it's another category that gets marginalized. So just watch the video and you'll see how people get excluded from the rest of society. Okay. When we talk about microaggressions, you may have heard this word before. It's a statement, action, or an incident regarded as an instance or indirect, subtle, or unintentional discrimination against members of a marginalized group, such as racial or ethnic minority. So microaggressions are not huge statements. Sometimes they are not overtly racist, or they're not um, overtly meant to discriminate. However, because certain groups will get more microaggressions than other, they will build up eventually, creating an outburst. So, for example, uh, telling a black man, "Boy, your English is really good for being black." And so the underlying message is, well, black people are rappers, are thugs. Maybe this is not the language that you should be using. Or, boy, you drive well for being Asian. And so there's that stereotype that Asians are not good drivers. And so you think you're complimenting, but you're really not, because the message is being sent that your group or that group of people are not known for that. Okay. I am also attaching a quick video on microaggressions and how they work. Okay, so these are all supplemental videos that you can watch. Then we move to institutionalized discrimination, and this refers to the unjust and discriminatory mistreatment of an individual or group of individuals by society and its institutions as a whole through unequal selection or bias, intentional or unintentional, as opposed to individuals making a conscious choice to discriminate. So an example might be, and this is a very like general one. For example, if you have a company where historically did not hire people of different races, and now the policy is that you have to hire them, but your policy within your company is that you get promoted on seniority rather than performance. Well, the people that were hired after would not have a chance to advance because the people that were there first would have tips on moving up. So that would be an example where there's a policy that discriminates against a group of people, but in it's in the company. It's not meant to discriminate, but it does. Okay. Social mobility is the ability to change positions within a social stratification system. When people improve or diminish their economic status in a way that affects social class, they experience social mobility. And I am attaching a video that explains the problem with social mobility in the States. However, you can apply this to the Canadian society as well in terms of how easy it is for someone to move up in society. Okay. Stereotypes are oversimplified ideas about groups of people. Prejudice is the thoughts, the feelings about stereotype groups. Racism is a type of prejudice that involves set beliefs about a specific racial group. Aversive racism is the behavior shown by a person who genuinely believes in racial equality and acts accordingly, but unconsciously harbors some negative feelings about other races. So this is the problem. This is a huge problem because this is not as overt as just someone being racist and you can call them out on it. Aversive racism is an individual who truly believes they're not racist, but subconsciously they have feelings or they think different things about different groups, and it comes out in certain ways. So it might be in a hiring process. If you're saying, no, I am not racist, however, you are always, your tendency is always to hire someone from a specific race, then that could be an example of aversive racism. Um, Acting in ways that you don't believe are racist, however, because it is directed at certain groups, it could be aversive racism. Okay. Discrimination is the actions towards the stereotype group. So the prejudice is the feelings and the thoughts. The racism is the prejudice. The discrimination is the action. Okay. Minority groups, when we talk about minority groups, a culturally, ethnically, and racially distinct group that coexist but is subordinate to a more dominant group. And so when we talk about minority groups, it does not necessarily correlate with population. So when we talk about South Africa during apartheid, we know that the black population was way higher than who was in power, the whites. However, they were considered to be the minority group. And finally, systemic problem. And this is where I would like to focus on and what's going to lead to the assignment. A systemic problem is a problem due to issues inherent in the overall system, rather than due to a specific individual isolated factor. Contrast with pilot error, user error, or mistake. A change to the structure, organization, or policies in that system could alleviate the systemic problem. So an example that is going on right now is police brutality against the Black community. Okay, so time and again, in different states, different times, we are seeing that Black men specifically are being killed by white police officers. And so you can't say, well, this was just this one individual, or maybe this person was racist, maybe it was an accident, because it is happening throughout. We consider that to be a systemic problem. Another systemic problem that we have here in Canada is when we look at the overrepresentation of Indigenous the indigenous community in our incarceration and legal system. So even though the proportion of the indigenous community um, within Canada is very, very low, when we look at the prison system, we see that the the percentage of that community is way, way higher. And so we consider that to be a systemic problem as to why this is happening. Okay. So when we talk about, there's been um, many issues with the RCMP, and many complaints and many cases are coming out in terms of sexual harassment. That would be considered a systemic problem because it's within the system rather than just a specific individual. Okay. I am also attaching a documentary that you may choose to watch, and it's about a case that happened in Thunder Bay, and it talks about the inequality that the community, the indigenous community, is feeling when it comes to investigation of crimes in that community. So, um, in the States, they are having all these issues right now that have to do with police brutality against the Black community. But if you move up to Canada, we are having um, similar things happening just with the Indigenous community. So feel free to watch it. It's quite interesting, and it might help you choose for your assignment, the topic for your assignment. So your final assignment will be a bit of a research assignment, and it talks about social movements. So social movements are purposeful, organized groups striving to work for a common goal, social goal, either with the goal of pushing toward change, giving political voice to those without it, or gathering for some other common purpose. Okay? So basically, what I would like you to do is research one of these social movements that I have listed here. Now, if you would like to focus on another one, just send me a quick email and to let me know that you're interested in doing something else. Okay. I would encourage you to choose to kind of look up what these are all about and choose one that you're not very familiar with, because the whole purpose of this is for you to do some research and learn about what's going on around around the world. Okay. So I've listed all the types of social movements. I have also I'm including a video on social movements that you can choose to watch. It's just about the theories as to why social movements happen. Okay, and so you're going to choose a modern day social movement from the list provided below and answer the following questions. Then the second question is, as a supporter of the cause, advocate on behalf of the movement, I want you to write a mock opinion editorial, an op-ed letter to a local newspaper in, okay? And in your letter, I would like you to answer, kind of address all of these bullet points, okay? I am attaching a rubric to go along with the two questions. Basically, I'm just looking for some thought, some reflection, and some research or evidence of research, and that's it. So it's just basically for you to do a little bit of research um, and just get informed about what's going on. I just thought it was really interesting with everything that's going on with in the States right now. So, okay. Have fun, and if you have any questions, just send me an email. Okay, bye.